What if you could turn the most tedious, boring part of your job into something you actually look forward to doing? Today, we're diving into a powerful mindset shift that does exactly that. It's called the game frame. So our story starts inside a software company that is on the absolute brink of collapse. I'm not talking about missing profit targets. I'm talking about a full-on battle for survival. Their product was just a mess. It was completely riddled with bugs. And every single time they tried to ship a new feature, it only created more problems. The entire system was failing, and you can bet morale had hit rock bottom. And here's the real poison in the system: the mindset. For the engineers, fixing these critical bugs wasn't the mission. No way. It was just a tedious chore, a tax they had to pay before they could get back to their so-called real job of building cool new things. So what does management do? Well, they pull out the standard playbook. They threw everything at the wall. More code reviews, more mandatory testing, layers and layers of new process. All the typical boring fixes you'd expect. And none of it made a single bit of difference. The bugs just kept piling up, the engineers grew more and more frustrated, the whole situation felt completely hopeless.
But then, right when everyone was pretty much ready to give up, a new idea came from the most unlikely of places.
A junior engineer who was a passionate gamer in his spare time saw the problem in a totally different way. He didn't see a process failure, he saw a motivation failure. And he had this wild idea inspired by the online role-playing games he loved. So he took this idea to his managers, and they basically laughed him out of the room. A game? They were a serious company with a serious crisis. They called it a toy, a complete waste of time. But, they were desperate, so they let him try it anyway. Now, here's the genius part. His idea wasn't about changing the work itself. It was about changing the story they told themselves about the work. He reframed the entire problem with one simple, powerful change in language. Engineers were no longer fixing boring, tedious bugs. Oh no, they were now teaming up to slay epic monsters. It sounds like such a tiny change, but believe me, it was everything. He built this really simple system. Bugs became monsters with health points based on how bad they were. When you fixed one, you earned experience points and virtual gold. You could use that gold to buy silly things like a sword of code slang for your profile, and of course, everyone could see who was at the top of the bug hunter leaderboard. The change was immediate and just astonishing. Engineers who were once bored and totally disengaged were now obsessed. They started forming hunting parties to take down the biggest, nastiest monsters. They were competing, they were collaborating, and they were actually having fun, fixing bugs. So what happened? What were the actual results of this little toy that management had totally dismissed? The results weren't just good, they were absolutely mind-blowing. The company's total bug count just plummeted. It dropped by 90%. Just let that sink in for a second. They didn't just improve the situation, they completely transformed it. A 90% reduction. And they did it in just 3 months. Not with more process, not with more oversight, but with more fun. So what's the secret here? I mean, this story isn't just about software. It's about a fundamental principle of human motivation. This is the secret right here. The game frame. It's the conscious act of reframing an activity, of shifting your perspective from seeing a task as an obligation you have to do to seeing it as a voluntary challenge, a game you get to play. Think of it like this. When you frame a task as a job, your mindset becomes, I have to do this, and it just drains your energy. But if you frame that exact same task as a game, your mindset shifts to, I get to do this. And suddenly, you're energized. The task never changed, only the frame you decided to put around it. This quote just nails it perfectly. All people work harder at play than they do at work because there's no resistance. It really explains why someone can play a video game for 10 hours straight but feel totally exhausted after 8 hours at the office. Play just removes our mental resistance to effort. So, how can you apply this? How do you take this powerful concept and actually use it in your own life? Well, it's actually really simple. First, you have to define the win. What's the clear, measurable goal? Second, you set the rules. Give yourself a constraint, like a time limit. That's really the whole idea behind the Pomodoro technique. And third, you have to keep score. Track your progress. A visible scoreboard is incredibly motivating. So that brings the final question back to you. Think about your own work, your chores, your personal goals. What's one tedious job in your life that you can turn into an epic game?